Okay, you're good to go, Chair.
Good evening. I want to welcome you to the Rockland County Red Guideline Board meeting. Rockland County Board members, we appreciate your attendance. We will be giving you information. We will gain information in the last week on the 23rd and the 24th. And April is going to sum this all up for us, and we'll take some testimony. At this time, would you please call the roll? Make sure we have. Thank you.
Yep. Mr. Langford.
Here.
Ms. Caldwell.
Here.
Ms. Guzman. I did receive a text or an email from her. She said she may be late. She had a meeting in the city she's coming up from. Mr. Rothkin.
Here.
Mr. Van Dam.
Here.
Ms. Fosco.
Here.
Mr. Most.
Here.
You have 6 present members. You have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, are you ready to speak? What you summarize what we, the information we were given last week regarding.
How would you like the summary, Chair? You received a handout and presentation from the research and analysis meeting based on income and expense survey. And tonight the meeting is for the purpose of a public hearing and then to reconvene for a public meeting to take the vote to set the guidelines.
This time. We should be open to public meeting, public hearing. I have several names here of people who I wish to address the board at this time. Lisa Walker.
I want to address, I thought that was just the same.
Or you're just here.
I'm sorry.
Okay, Donna, who wrote,
Yes,
you want to address the board, or you just here to hear me?
I'd like to do both. I really would. And I have a few questions because I'm not, from Pat, as you know, now, I'm one of your tenants.
Yeah, but you, that doesn't apply.
Okay, I get it, but yes, I'd like to speak.
Okay.
That's it?
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Donna Tickle, and I reside at 27 Rose Avenue in Spring Valley, apartment 811 in Spring Valley. And I'm here, Pat is my landlord. I have a few concerns. I've been living in my apartment for 30 years. I've been a very loyal tenant. And last year, actually this year, our rent has increased quite a lot, $150 extra a month. We did get a flyer regarding the ETPA, and I wasn't really aware of what that meant. And I was under the impression that Spring Valley, where I live, is rent stabilization. And from what I understand, it isn't, not our building. And I just don't understand why the increase has been so large.
First of all, the building is not a public program because it's a private property. This program came into effect with your partner. What is that? They did. Currently, with the increase that you receive, is a very large one, you said.
Right.
Still does not bring you up to market. I don't know if you know what the market rents are in Rockland County or in Spring Valley area, but it's tremendously higher than what you pay.
Mm-hmm.
And because of all the cost, the increases in utilities, taxes, and everything else that goes up to try to maintain affordable use of housing, that's why the increase.
But Pat,
Go ahead.
no disrespect, but the building is falling apart.
Well, exercise your right to do what you need to do. If you don't, if you think that the building meets the standards that you need to have to live in, then do it. I strongly suggest that. In the absence of that, we have done everything we can and we continue to do to try to maintain the quality of the true quality of life for all of our residents.
Pat, no disrespect, but I come here tonight to get answers, not to argue.
I'm not arguing with you, Donna, I'm simply telling you what the status.
Okay, because
This is
even
not the location for you to be, but since you choose to be here,
this is a public meeting,
yes, but I'm saying.
and I'm welcome.
Okay, there's no
Okay.
question about that.
And I'm sure after this, I'm sure there's gonna be some repercussions behind this. So I'm, you know, you and I, you know, I don't have any axe to grind with you. I just wanna pay my rent.
I mean, are you a rent stabilized tenant?
That I'm not sure of.
No, she's not.
So this board only hears rent stabilized, only considering.
That's what I
paying up for rent
addressed.
stabilized.
Yeah, that's what I wasn't quite understanding.
So
And
I'll answer your question for you. Rent stabilization is only applicable in this county for Haverstraw and Spring Valley, and for buildings that were built before 1971.
right, and our building
And had been
was built
opted in.
1960.
But apparently your building is not a privately owned, rent regulated building. It's subject to some sort of additional economics. And there are buildings in both Spring Valley and Haverstraw that will not qualify for those reasons.
I appreciate you answering that. And that's why, Pat, when I reach out to you, I just want answers. I don't want
Well, you can do that.
you, no. Here, just hear me out.
Okay.
I just wanted to address, because I know living there, and you know me for quite some time. Okay, yeah, you're right, and I am gonna go, because I understand that this is a public meeting, all right? But there's some issues that I need to address. And no, I wasn't aware, sir, of the rent stabilization, but when I do go to ask questions, I'm dealing with attitudes. That's not what I'm here for. That's not what I live here for. You know what I mean? But I just wish, okay, and I want you to hear me, okay? People pay rent there. I'm not the only person that lives there. I don't live free, okay? And I try to keep the place up as much as I can. But just like I have a responsibility, so do you. That's all I'm asking, you know? I just wish we could do better instead of raising the rent. The rents have been increased, but the services have not. And I don't understand why. That's all. That's it. And I thank you, sir, for your
Thank you.
time. I thank you for hearing me.
Arm open.
And I like to speak on some things that's wrong with my apartment. I have screws in the front windows. The window is screwed, so if a fire comes, I can get out of that window. In the back, the window had a hole in it. The seal, it had a hole in it. I had a flood last week. I think it was Friday. I don't know where the water come from, but the water just come right out of my sink, all under the stove, the cabinets and everything, inside and out. And Jerome came and dipped the water out of the sink, and then he came back later and put some stuff in the sink, you know, to unstop it. And now I got spots and stuff all in a new sink that they just put in, a few months ago. And I don't know what that would do to me if I put my stuff in there when I get ready to cook. I can't do that. So I got a pan that I have to put my stuff in when I wash the meat and stuff, when I wash it. So, because I'm not going to put it in there because I don't know what it might do to me. I'm 81 years old. And I don't think I should live like that. And in the front window over there by my TV, I called the health department, they took pictures, cause there's screws in the window, so I can't get the window open. Now there's more screws, and the other window is bolted to the other one. And they had clay up on the window in the inside. And Jerome came, and he straightened that down and put some strips up there. And I don't think I'm supposed to live like that either. I think I'm supposed to have nice windows. And they're supposed to be so I can open them. I can't open my windows. I have one window that I can open. That's my kitchen window. I can't open none of the other ones. 27 Rose Avenue. I live across the hall from her. And this problem been going on for quite a while.
You live in the same building?
Yes.
So is your apartment rent stabilized?
No.
I'm not exactly sure, I'm a new board member, but I don't think this is the forum where you should be bringing this up.
Why?
Because
Because that's what happened to me.
it's not a forum for all apartments, it's only a forum for rent stabilized apartments. Am I
Correct.
Council?
Yes,
Oh,
your building is not rent stabilized, as I
I
just,
didn't say what.
no, I understand, but this board is setting a guideline for apartments that are subject to the rent stabilization. So all they're hearing is information from tenants and owners that are subject to rent stabilization. It's not an open meeting for people that, you know, I understand you live in Spring Valley, but they're not taking testimony from private owners, private buildings, individual homeowners, two-family houses, or buildings that are not subject to stabilization. They're limited to stabilization. That's what their job is, unfortunately for you
The
guys.
rent keep going up.
Thank you. Brian,
Good evening. My name is Brian Condon. I'm an attorney here in the county, and I represent several landlords. I have a handout.
Yeah.
Today, I was hoping just to talk a little bit about numbers. I think we as a community understand the price of eggs, the price of oil, the price of gas, rent, insurance, utilities, all of that has gone up. I think we can all agree as to that. But what I think we need to focus on is how is Rockland County faring in comparison to the other municipalities and counties in the surrounding area? So what I did is I handed you, and I don't think this was part of the presentation last week, although it was, I think, last year. There's a guide to rent increases for rent stabilized apartments. It's a fact sheet. It's the last 5 pages of my handout. And on the second to last page, it talks about what the increases that you guys are looking to consider tonight, what they've been over the past 7 years. And it compares what happened to New York City, in Nassau County, in Rockland County, in Westchester County. And I didn't compare the Westchester where the tenant pays heat or water, or the city of Kingston. I didn't think it was a large enough sample. So New York City, Nassau, Rockland, and Westchester. And if you look at the Rockland County column, the stark difference between Rockland and the other surrounding counties is sizable. For 7 years, Rockland County got a 0.0 increase out of the last 1, 2, 3, 4 of the last 7. There were 0.7 increases. In 2 of the 7, there was less than 1%. This is for a 1-year renewal. And then last year, finally, we were given a modest 2% increase. Now, 2% seems like an awful lot, but when you get 5 years or 4 years of 0, or 5 years of 0.5, and other counties such as Westchester are getting 2% or 1.75%, we're never going to catch up. And we don't expect to catch up today or even next year. But if we now are keeping up with the Joneses in Nassau County or Westchester, I think they got a 2% increase this year. If we get a 2% increase this year, and that's all we get, we're still woefully behind the surrounding counties. If you look, and again, I call your attention to page 4 of 5, which is from the fact sheet. But I did a little adding using my fingers and toes. Looking at the very first page, I averaged out the chart that I just showed you. And the last 7-year average from 18 through 2025, New York City had an average increase of 1.92 in a 1-year lease. And in a 2-year lease, New York City was 3.14%. Nassau County, 1 year was 1.14, and Nassau 2-year lease was 2.07. I'm going to skip Rockland for a second. Westchester in a 1-year lease increase had 1.39 on average, and a 2-year was 2.09. And this is the same fact sheet that I showed you, which is a calculation on the numbers. Rockland County during that same period of time, in a 1-year lease increase, 0.43. In a 2-year, 0.71. Looking at those numbers across the board, 3% for New York City, 2% for Nassau, 2% for Westchester, and 0.71 for Rockland County. So listen, I don't expect everyone to, give us a 10% increase. Obviously, that's not realistic. But to give us another 2 or 3 or 4% increase is not going to catch us up. And it's unfortunate if you turn to the second page, this is a 20-year history of the increases, not 7. This is what's gone on for the last 20 years here in Rockland County. And the last 7 were the zeros. If you look in the middle part of the sheet, from 2015 to 2019, it was 5 zeros in a row. 0, 0, 0, 0 for the 1% increase, for the first year increase. Going down to 2005 to 2009, there was an average every year of a 2.5% increase in a 1-year renewal and a 4.25 increase in a 2-year renewal. In 2010, it spiked to a 3% and a 6% respectively, and then it plummeted. For years 2011 through 2024, Rockland County only received 3, that's 15 years, 3 increases of 2%. The rest were either 0, 1%, or 0.5%. So I would submit to you respectfully, and I know this is hard and it's tough sledding. I know, Madam Chair, you had to do in a for-profit $150 a month. It's expensive and it's unfortunate, but it's necessary. I'm sorry?
Not for profit, and that makes it work.
I get it. But in the situation such as here, again, even if you're not going to do the increases for the landlords all in one swoop, we need a 3% annual increase or a 4% annual increase. Not because we're keeping up with everybody. This is to catch up to everybody else. Nobody else has gotten the zeros that we've gotten in Rockland County. And I know no one likes to pay for more, but if they want better services, these landlords, the cost of living has gone up 4% last year. COLA, or the cost of living, has gone up 3%. If you're raising it 2.5%, we're still not even keeping up. We're falling behind. And we need to swallow hard and try to catch up. Again, not in all one fell swoop, but this year or next year, try to catch up a little bit. And I understand that times are tough, but the landlords don't get a chance to not pay their taxes. They go up. They can't pay the utilities. Utilities have gone up, but the landlords can't recoup that. And this idea that, well, if you raise the rent, how do you know the landlords are going to use the money for the building? I guess you don't. But it's a lot easier to do so when they have money coming in to pay them for the services that they're not able to provide. So with that, I hope you would consider the numbers that are set before you, and I thank you for your time.
After that, someone else is.
I would like to I already addressed the board. My name is Daniel Kazanowski. I already addressed the board last week. Daniel Kazanowski. So I've been coming to these meetings for around 5 years. And I hate to say it that every year, the main complaint from the tenant side is the conditions of their apartment. And as I reflected on this after leaving the meeting last week, it became obvious to me that because of the fact that the average we just heard of the last 10 years is less than 0.5% of rental increases, and the market at times has even grown 5% a year, tenants are looking at, and landlords are looking at the rents that they're receiving from rent stabilized apartments, and they're looking across the street at the market apartments. And the disparity has grown to such an extreme that, and again, I know the DHCR has protections for tenants, and I'm not a lawyer, I don't know all the ins and outs, but it's clear to me, as this person, the sad situation where the apartments are actually caving in, the landlords are completely disincentivized to maintain their buildings. They would actually rather Kim Wepler come and put a notice on the building that it has to be vacated. Because then what happens? They get to take down the building and they could build something much more attractive and get a lot more rent. Now, I understand there's a lot of complicated things with the law, and I'm not going to get into it. But you don't want to incentivize landlords to be calling attorneys to figuring out how I can run from these buildings. And right now, because of the fact that the increases over the last 10 years have been less than 0.5%, we are essentially incentivizing landlords to make those phone calls to attorneys and say, how can I take down this building? You never want to ever be in a situation like that. So yes, I do not believe that this board should put a 10% increase in. I don't want next year that the meeting should be full of tenants saying, you gave me an unconscionable increase. But we have to create an environment where year after year, we have fair increases, and therefore the rents will not have such a disparity from the market, and the landlords will not be calling the lawyers to figure out how the buildings can come down. Have a good evening.
You put yourself back on the list? You were the first person on the list, right? So you said you didn't want to speak, so you're gonna have to let them know that you want to speak.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
No, I didn't sign it. Oh. I'm Norman Raymond, I live in Regency Village, and I'd like to discuss the schedules that were passed out at the last meeting. Because Regency is it occupies a third of the housing in rent stabilized buildings, I can do the figures. Regency's gross income was $8,462,000. The total expenses was $6,531,000. It subtracted the income, the gross income and the expenses. Regency's net income was $1,931,000, which is a 2.3% profit for Regency Village. Regency's the data from building schedule 16 and 15, it shows that Regency skewed the expenses under miscellaneous. Regency's miscellaneous expense was $259,000. They configured that based upon the 16th schedule. The miscellaneous expenses were 72.5% of the expense for the schedule 16 buildings. Did you understand what I tried to express? So Regency's miscellaneous expenses were 72.5% of all the miscellaneous expenses of the buildings listed in Schedule 16. It was something like 257 minus 98 between Schedule 16 and 15. The other thing I wanted to comment on that is that some of the apartments in Regency Village have been remodeled and have sat empty for more than 6 months to over a year. Just as an illustration, so that's a loss of income. Why they're that way, I do not know. So thank you.
Thank you, thank you. You done it before.
I was on the list earlier and I gave up my turn as a possible.
Norman, can you just sign up there? Can you sign the form, please? The sign-in form, thank you.
Anyone else? I'm here for you. Okay, I just want to see if there's anyone else who did not sign, who come in later and decide they want to speak. Gentlemen. Right, okay. At this time that, you was Walker. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Walker. I'm from the Spring Valley NAACP. I'm part of their housing committee. I thought that I was coming just to observe. I accidentally got on the list, but sometimes accidents happen for a reason. So I just have a couple of questions. I'm not an expert on housing or Spring Valley, what your board does. I actually missed the first two meetings because I think in general, a lot of people from Spring Valley have no idea that this meeting is even taking place. I found out about it at the last minute. So I think maybe there is a way in which more people would know about this meeting. I don't know how you advertise it. Maybe it's our fault that we don't know, but to get it out more to the general public. We've been having many housing forums and just the outcry from the general people from Spring Valley about not having affordable housing. And, you know, housing can be affordable to somebody, but to the average man who's going to work every day, they just see that they're being squeezed out of a community that they've lived in, some people 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. So my question is, I understand that you're only dealing with rent stabilized apartments, but do the people who own these rent stabilized apartments, is there any incentive maybe from the government or tax cuts? Like, what is the benefit of having a rent stabilized, being the owner of a rent stabilized apartment?
Except for in some circumstances down in the city, they do have tax benefits, and as a trade-off, you agree to have your building rent stabilized. There's nothing to the effect of what you're talking about.
So Spring Valley doesn't give a tax incentive for the homeowners of the rent stabilized apartments?
No.
Okay, so it just seems like, I understand the landlord's position. I've been a landlord before. I understand the tenant's position, but it just seems like Spring Valley is having a burst of new buildings. There has to be new income coming into the government. So it seems like maybe instead of the tenants and the landlords fighting each other, maybe the person they need to hold accountable is the city or the village of Spring Valley, and find out why people who have rent subsidized apartments are not being somehow helped or compensated by the village or the government or some kind of grant. Because when you look around the room and I say to these people, is anybody in here able to pay $150 more a month in rent? I work for the state. I can't pay an extra $150. The economy is bad for everyone. So I think that maybe the tenants, the landlords, and the village need to come together and say, how is it that we can keep Spring Valley affordable for all, not just a select few who are able to pay $4,000, $5,000, or whatever crazy amounts it's gonna cost people to live in Spring Valley. Even sometimes if you're on a fixed income, $3,000 is a lot, $2,000 is a lot. I know that people are paying more to rent than I'm paying to own a co-op. So there has to be some kind of conversation that includes the village and the landlords and the tenants to figure out how do these people are there. The landlord can still keep making money, but also too, the tenant is not gonna be out on the street because that's what's gonna happen if rents go up 5%, 10%. Where are these people gonna live? I don't know what Mr. Condon is, but where are they gonna live if all of a sudden, I understand the landlord, but to go up 10% or to go up 5%, you know how many families are gonna be displaced? How many children are gonna be displaced? When I was in my 20s, I grew up in Nye. We got priced out of Nye, and you had to either go to Spring Valley to live, or you had to go to Havenstraw, or you had to go to Garnerville. And now that's not even affordable. So where are people going to live? There has to be another conversation, and I'm not asking landlords to go into foreclosure because they're trying to help the tenant, but there has to be a conversation between the landlord, the tenant, and the government, and figure out how do we maintain Spring Valley as a place where everyone can afford to live, especially if you've already given 30 years of your life to Spring Valley. Now to say, well, you know what, now we're revitalizing, get out, go to the bus station, that's not appropriate.
Anyone else with our neighbor? Hearing none.
Close the,
Their second. Your property moved and second, close the public hearing. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries, the public hearing. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending. Five years, five. Sitting.
Yes, if I may, Chair.
Yes, you certainly.
We heard a lot of data, both from tenants, landlords, many members of the public, as well as the HCR at our second meeting. I actually looked at the numbers myself, and my percentages were consistent with the data that was spoken of tonight, that the 5-year average was 0.6% and 1%. Over the last 5 years. There were actually 6 years in a row of 0%, not 5. Over the last 10 years, the 10-year average 0.43% and 0.7% for a 2-year. The 20-year being 1.25% and 2.29%. This far lags over anything steeped in reality, okay? Whether that's compared to other counties in New York City that are subject to the ETPA, or whether that's subject to the actual data. We saw that insurance as a percentage of expenses was 12% last year. This year it went up to 55%, okay? We also saw that the cost to income ratio this year is the highest that it's been since the financial crisis from 2008 to 2010. Now, I actually just got an email on my phone that the New York City, okay, New York City, who just voted in a very progressive mayor in the Democratic primary, who's been advocating for a rent freeze. New York City just moments ago voted for 3% for a 1-year lease and 4.5% for a 2-year lease. Okay, the socialist bastion of New York City voted for that this year. We have a lot of work to do to make up for what it takes to maintain a building, as we heard from the public tonight. So I propose that we have a lot of catching up to do, and tenants, more than landlords, would benefit, because it would take landlords a long time to catch up to the expenses, but tenants will realize immediate results from guidelines that actually allow owners to invest in their property and not seek to have these apartments remain vacant or become vacant, or buildings no longer exist. I propose that I make a motion that we entertain a guideline of 6% for a 1-year lease, 7.75% for a 2-year lease.
First of all, that's really cool. There are other living for that being. Extra sin more. And 7.75. Oh, yeah. No, you can make your rebuttal, whatever recommendation.
I actually prepared a few statements, some words. Basically everything that Ms. Walker just said. The whole thing here, I think the system is broken. The system is broken. You know, I've been here now for 8 years, so I haven't, and the same people, a lot of the same people are here. So why can't we hold this particular, at least this particular landlord, you know, accountable? Like I was interviewed by, I assume somebody who was my boss, and, you know, the person was telling me, that we did 0, so we did 2 or 3% last year. And the only way I know how to hold these landlords accountable is with rent freeze. And so that's not your job. So what is our job? You know, what is our job if we're not here to advocate? I know we all have different roles, and I understand that, I respect that. But I'm here to advocate, you know, for the tenants, and I'm not against landlords making money, or anybody making money for them. But, you know, with tariffs and taxes, everybody's paying it. I mean, I own my house, but, you know, I'm paying the same price as, you know, somebody who's landlord, or tenants paying the eggs and stuff like that. We're all getting hit. And, you know, and honestly, landlords have, maybe I'm making an assumption here, more income. You know, yes, you have the maintenance, but some landlords are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So it breaks my heart to sit here and like, maybe even hear people say that we're not here to listen to people, you know, their conditions, that, you know, their grievances. We're here just to set the guideline. But how do we not, I mean, we all have parts, you know, but how do we not consider, like, I hear what you're saying, I hear what they're saying, you know, and it's kind of like trying to like weigh it. And it just like, it breaks my heart. And then also like, oh, well, the health department, well, the police, in the political climate we're living in, that's not always an option for everybody to do that. You know, and so we have to respect that too. It's like, so the system needs to be fixed. And whether it gives us more power, gives you more power, gives the state more, the county, someone needs to take charge. And like 36 owners and 16 people sent in their surveys. That's ridiculous, in my opinion. Like, we have to hold them that accountable too. It's like, when everybody comes to the table, like Ms. Walker said, when everybody comes to the table, then we can find some solutions where, and when people don't come here, this room is empty and nobody's complaining. You want 2, 3, 4%? Yeah, that's okay. If people are not saying that, you know, their windows are, you know, stuff like that. You know, when everybody's living the way everybody's entitled to live, then, in my opinion, then we can go with substantial increases. Because I don't also believe in playing catch up. It's like we're going back 20 years. I mean, 20 years ago, my kids were graduating from high school. You know, I have grandchildren. So it's like, you know, so 20 years ago is, yes, it was important, but I'm living here now. I'm living 20 years here now. And, you know, we have a different president, we have a different this, we have a different that, you know. And like Ms. Walker said too, it's like, I worked in NIAC before I retired. You know, she got priced out of NIAC, so to go to Garnerville, Haverstraw, you know, Spring Valley. You know, it's like, where do people, not everybody, people who live in, I'm not saying nobody works the system, I think people work the system on both sides. People work the system. But people, for the most part, who are living in rent controlled, need to live in rent control. And they're living on, they're 81 years old
My mom was 84, she passed away last year, sorry. You know, and people, if they, it's like, and we're here to help. And I'm sorry.
Madam Chair, do you have a I'm sorry, go ahead. Do you have a recommendation you'd like to make at this time?
I'll just go 0.
I don't have any thought, I'll take 0. Oh, yes, if I may just say something, Joe. Okay. Now, Ms. Fosque just said on the record, you know, of course, we're human and we have hearts and we have emotions, but the statute that literally created this board says that the board is required to only consider data. So I would ask council, because Ms. Fosque said on the record that we should hold one owner accountable, is the board permitted to do so? That question has come up several times over the last 10 years.
I believe that would be unprecedented. So, you know, the law says what it says about what you have to do as a board to meet every year. And it has certain prohibitions on, you know, what you can't consider as a board. And when it tells you can set the guidelines, it does specifically say that the guidelines can be set at different rates in different parts of your jurisdiction. As far as a targeted guideline that would carve out one owner, to my mind, I don't believe it's ever actually been done. So I think it would be, you know, our counsel would probably be, if that's something this board wants to do, you would need to ensure that you've built up a sufficient enough record to support that in the event of a legal challenge. And sitting here, I don't think that April or I could tell you, yeah, you've met that, or yeah, you know, no, you haven't. That's just a consideration this board would have to make.
The reason I say that is because over the last 10 years, April, as you very well know, that has been a question asked year after year. Why is this one particular place being not held accountable when everybody else has to pay the penalty for what they're not doing? And we were asked, could we separate them out? And at some point, given data that makes the separation, but we're not legally allowed to vote separately. And we've never gotten a clear answer on why that's not. Why can't we just simply say, with the exception of this unit?
I think my question was more to set a guideline based on holding one counter accountable. That was set on the record. And I believe that violates the statute. But thank you, counsel.
Someone else? You see?
So I'm obviously new to this board, but I, work with landlords and tenants on a regular basis. My family's real estate business has been here for 55 years. And looking at the data, I do think it's important to have some level of catch up, because what I'm just seeing looking back at these numbers, looking back 6 years, is basically a bunch of zeros with, it's undisputable that we've had exponential rises in cost. And I think also what makes sense is we're not asking for any increase to consider what I would say is not being affordable housing. I mean, in the last 45 days, I've rented to tenants a 1-bedroom apartment they paid $3,500 for. I rented 4 2-bedroom apartments and they rented between $4,200 and $4,500. And I do think that looking at the data and just some of the expenses increasing, especially in the insurance and utilities, that it would make sense to propose an increase. My motion would be, I would propose seeing a 5% increase on the 1 year and 7% on the 2 year. And also, the reason I came up with that number is because to me, that is literally on average, like about a 0.6, 0.7% increase over 5 years, over the last 5 or 6 years. That's my rationale.
Having listened to all of the information that we received, I think I'd like to make a few comments. I'm not exactly sure that not increasing the rent is going to solve any problem other than making the landlord just madder or landlords not having money to be able to do what they have to do. And as we pointed out, maybe they'll go out of business, in which case then it makes the housing situation worse. In terms of what was pointed out by whoever it was about meeting together with the government and things like that, I think that's something to take up with the village. There's a new mayor coming in Spring Valley, I think. We all know it now. I don't think this board, I think we would like to stay out of the politics, or at least I would. I can't speak for anyone else. But I don't think anyone who in the last year, especially if they've gone shopping in the store as I have, when they went to go buy eggs, when my wife said, buy a dozen eggs, and when I saw the price, I almost fainted. I mean, can argue with the fact that prices have gone up. Whether it's eggs, whether it's orange juice, whether it's fuel, whether it's insurance, and I deal with all those industries. I work in a school where I provide lunch for all of my students, and my prices have gone up. My electric rates have gone up. My cost of eggs has gone up significantly. My insurance has gone up in crazy numbers. And I don't think, though, on the other hand, that we're going to make up for the sins of the past, if one can call it that, by giving a 10% increase. But I think we have to take a hard, realistic look and say that the owners, the landlords, do need an increase because costs have gone up. The consumer price index for this past year was 4.3%. That's a very good representation of what the economy is doing. No one can question, I don't think anyone in this room can question that prices have gone up. So what good does it do for us to say to the landlord, sorry, even though prices have gone up, too bad, we're not increasing it, giving you any increase. It doesn't make sense. It's illogical. And we're not punishing the landlord by not increasing them. We're punishing, I think, the tenant more than we are. And as someone who advocates for the tenants, I don't think it should be punished by punishing the landlord. There should be dialogue, there should be meetings with the village, whether it's Haverstraw, whether it's Spring Valley, to see if subsidies are available or there are ways for individual renters who are suffering financial hardships to be able to go and apply for different types of aid. That's not our purpose here. Our purpose here is to make sure that the tenant, the landlord, has what he needs in order to be able to operate the building rather than close it down. And that the tenant is not unfairly impacted with increases that make absolutely no sense, just because a tenant wants a lot of money. And therefore, I would tend to propose and agree with my colleague at the end, at least for the first year, to have a 5% increase for 1 year. And I would vote for a 6.5% for a 2-year lease.
Costs have gone up. And I agree with colleague Adam at the end. Jordan, thank you. Feel that the prices have gone up and the landlord shouldn't have to pay the cost. They, everything has been low. Now it's time. Maybe we can 5% for the first year. 6.5 for the second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was,
Okay, what was the second? For the 2 years?
6.5.
6.5. Okay. We have several recommendations on 5%. For the first year, seems to be the main number at this point. So let's do them individually. And,
Take a motion in a second, and we'll do a motion in a second, we'll
Take a
call.
motion for
Mhm.
that. Since that seems to be the popular number here, 5% for 1 year. I entertain a motion to set that as our guideline.
I move to make a 1 year rent increase of 5%.
Is there a second? Okay, so they're properly moved in second to make a 5% increase for the 1 year. And on the motion, April, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Blankfurt.
Yeah.
Mr. Rotkin,
Yes.
Mr. Van Dam,
Yes.
Ms. Fosco,
No.
Mr. Most,
Yes,
Ms. Caldwell.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-1.
5% increase in the first year. I entertain a motion for a 2 year increase. And we run the gamut from 6.5 to 7.75. With the mean number being about 6.5. Is there a motion to increase the 2 year? So moved. For what number? 6.5. Is there a second?
second.
Probably moved in second to make the 6.5 as a 2 year. Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Blankfurt.
Yes.
Mr. Rothkin,
Yes.
Mr. Van Dam,
Yes.
Ms. Fosco,
No.
Mr. Most,
Yes,
Chairwoman Caldwell.
Motion carries.
The motion failed. You voted no, correct?
Me, I voted.
You voted no, you voted yes. Okay, motion carries 5-1.
No, I voted no on the 6.5.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's what I said, and then you said
I
yes.
said
Okay,
yes, I voted
so the
no.
motion failed 4-2.
It failed.
No, you need
No.
to have, the quorum of 5, no matter how many people are here. It's 5 out of 9. The board is 9 people.
I'd like to make a motion for 6%.
Is there a second?
But
Second? Okay. We probably moved in second. Motion for 6% increase on the 2 year.
Okay.
Would you please call it up?
Mr. Blankfurt. Mr. Rothkin,
Yes.
Mr. Van Dam,
yes.
Ms. Fosco,
No.
Mr. Most,
yes.
Chairwoman Caldwell.
Yeah.
Motion carries 5-1.
Chair, there is one more order of business now that the guidelines have been set at 5% for the 1 year lease, 6% for the 2 year. Last Friday, we did circulate to this board the explanatory statement in a draft form, as I explained to this board last week. This year, we have been working with the research and analysis so that the explanatory statement can be finalized by the July 1st deadline set forth in the ETPA. I did provide everyone with a model resolution that's in front of everybody. I can read it into the record. Further moving to adopt the explanatory statement and findings substantially in the form submitted by DHCR staff to the board on June 27, 2025, to be modified by DHCR staff to reflect the adopted rental adjustments and the record from tonight's meeting. Further motion to direct DHCR staff to send the final explanatory statement to the acting deputy commissioner of DHCR on or before July 1st, 2025, as required by ETPA Section 4. So that, I think, as I mentioned to the board last week, would be how this board will be able to dispense with the September meeting, finalize the explanatory statement at this meeting, and it's how all the other boards are operating at this point. So we would recommend that one of the board members take up this motion to direct us to finalize the explanatory statement that's been circulated in draft.
I make a motion to whatever you said.
Okay.
Is there a second? Second. Probably moved in second. Do we need to have a voice vote or just do a majority vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. That's it. All the business that needs to be done for it. Correct? Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.